Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to day one of the November Culturally Competent Conversations for Equity and Belongingness, or the C3EB Summit, where in these next couple of days, today and tomorrow, we are focusing on improving the accessibility of equity and belongingness initiatives in our talent and workforce pipelines. And with that, I am so excited for this current session right now with Dr. David Glover. And before I introduce Dr. Glover, just a couple of housekeeping notes. Whether you're watching on LinkedIn, YouTube, or Facebook, please make sure whether you're watching this live or later, you see a ticker on the bottom of the screen. This is your sign-in sheet for this session, so we have a better understanding of how many people have been able to, have taken advantage of the access to this amazing session coming up. So please make sure you sign in. It's at www.c3eb.com/speaker/David-Glover. I also want to take a moment to thank our partners who are walking this walk with us so that we can build the C3EB platform to surpass TEDx and SXSW in the future, because that is a dream that will be manifested. So thank you to Catchwords, powered by EcoFiles, Achieve Podcast, Core Magazine, Aura Nexus, 30 Friends, Wistia, and the Nielsen Company for walking this walk with us. And with that, it is my utmost pleasure to introduce to you our expert speaker for today, Dr. David Glover. Hi, Dr. Glover.
Hello, hello, hello. Good day to you and everyone.
Yeah, good day to you too. So I just want to read people your bio so they understand the powerhouse that's in front of them real quick. Dr. David N. Glover is a PsyD, MAIO, and PMP. He is the president and director of Ennoblement, LLC. David is a graduate of Touro University, where he completed his doctorate for human and organizational psychology. He also holds a master's degree in industrial and organizational psychology with a concentration in executive coaching. He is a certified life coach, as well as a member of the American Association of Christian Counselors, or AACC. He's a member of the Society of Industrial and Organizational Psychologists, or SIOP, and an award-winning author of Building and Managing Organizations. As the founder of Ennoblement, LLC, he has played an integral role of elevating organizations in the field of leadership and religion. His doctorate research and community work provide empirical data to compel parishioners to assist in mitigating the maladies that lay festering in the pews. A viable and vital contributor to all he connects to, Dr. Glover has garnered a plethora of awards, trophies, certificates, and other tributes. He has traveled as a public speaker and as a consultant to organizations and executives. And today he is here with us virtually to blow our minds with his topic, which I will let him introduce because he's going to do more justice to that. So, Dr. Glover, the stage is yours.
Thank you so much. I'm so appreciative of this opportunity, and I'm humbled by this opportunity from Dr. AJ and the C3EB Summit. I am excited to be here, excited to be able to present and to further the work that is already being done by myself and others. And this is one of many times I hope to be able to not just be here as a speaker, but to also to be able to participate and hear what others are pouring out as well. And I encourage you to do the same. So with that, let's go ahead and jump right in to our task at hand. With the topic of destigmatizing, seeking professional help within the religious arenas of African American LGBTQ communities. And that's a mouthful that sounds like a lot, but basically what we're saying right there is how to take the stigma away from African Americans, the LGBTQ communities, seeking professional help from the religious component. Now, I know that this summit is uh, based on or triggering and pipelining workforce development and task force development. So corporations and the like are the target niche, but as well, I think that a lot of times we don't really realize, we really don't take in account that religion, although it is separated at some point as church and state, it impacts without even being conceived that it's being impacted in your corporate world, in your daily task life, in it informs your decision making, your leadership styles, and all those things. So what actually happens on the back end, if we go in reverse, is actually um, when you think about it, and we're going to talk about it a little bit more as we move forward, but they intertwine and intermingle very well. So you have to be cognizant of that. You have to be informed of that, so that you know that this stigma doesn't just affect only yourself, but it affects moving forward as well. It affects working in the religious area as well in the corporate area. Just one moment, I'm trying to advance my screen. So with that, we're going to look at the intertwining of religion and business, religious impact, the compound issues, and ways we can mitigate with that. So those are our 4 areas that we will be looking at and dealing with in this session. So when we look at intertwining religion and business, we have this thought that that they are separate, and they are separate. Church and state are separate. But when you think about going into religion, and any religion feeds itself on your core values. It is actually informing your behavior patterns, and not just coming inside of religious settings, or just even in your family and home life, but also in your everyday work life and dealing with your friends. Religion informs how you should behave, what type of values you should actually allow your decisions and your responses to be made from. So it invades and pervades in every aspect of society. So how you deal with your neighbor just coming out of the house, religion can have an impact on that. But then when you get into the boardroom making decisions, religion actually informs your psyche of making the best decisions, doing the right things. What type of leader, whether you're going to be a uh, a, a transformational leader, or whether you're going to be a situational leader, or whether you're going to be a leader that is, autocratic, all those different type of leaderships, you can find religion having a premise and a baseboard from it. So to think that they're completely separate is really just an espoused theory. It is not really something that works in a theory day to day, in your theory in use. You are actually still applying theories and theoreticals from the religious sector. If you have it from the faith base, whether you are in a faith base, there are some nonprofits, of course, that subscribe to religious backbones and constructs. And then there are educational systems that do the same. But even in corporate America, you cannot really separate out successfully doing the same. So the reflection that you have when you go to, if it's Bible study or to mass or to mosque, whatever you call that convening and learning of the religion, you actually are applying it to your personal self. And you take your personal and self into interpersonal relationship, so that you are always using the backbone of religion, even in your daily handlings, in your ethics and decorum. It is based on religion. So as we move from there, we get ready to talk about the religious impact, how in the African American history, how it has been, religion has been its background. Religion has always been a strong tenet of the African American church and identity in the United States, especially the religious Black Christian congregations have been considered a pillar of the African American community. It was created by slaves and it was used for everything from worship to protest to entertainment to even public speaking and leadership practice. Black churches have served as mutual aid groups, providing African Americans a sense of belonging, a place where there are positive role models, there are places for interpersonal learning, and a safe environment to share and express ideas and feelings. Even Robin Kelly discussed in his book, Race Rebels, that the Black church members also helped Southern labor unions, especially during the era of the industrial unionism and in the 1930s and 1940s. So historically, the Black church has been a station for Black people to come together, to engross themselves in their type of therapy from their day-to-day activity and from the stressors that had happened during slavery times. And even after that, the times that followed slavery, which still had harassments and different other civil rights movements and all of those things. The church was the bedrock for that. But even today, as it's pivotal to the present existence. It has not actually waned or waxed away in its fervor or in what it is called to do. Today, the Black Christian churches continue to serve as a social network where individuals obtain assistance in handling their day-to-day living problems. They can learn that they are not alone in their experiences and still feel accepted. Now, the mental health research shows that the impact of religious involvement is positively related to other positive psychological outcomes, such as subjective well-being, supportive family ties, and the use of effective coping strategies. It also provides a formal structure of acceptance and acknowledges all the respects members of the Black community by bestowing on them valued roles in the church. So the Black church is said to be the place and has proven by data collected to be the place where Black people currently still can come and feel a part of something, feel like a team, and still feel like it is the bedrock, it is the core of their existence, that they everything else is systemic from their core beliefs that they learn within the church walls. So it also becomes then a place for therapeutic functionality. It is the place where they're able to actually come and lay their burdens down or unpack with like-minded people, have social groups that they can come to and not feel judged or feel a part of, feel like we're on the same page. And everybody needs that. It becomes for many people, as our data has extracted, it becomes actually sometimes more family than their biological or bloodline family. So it becomes very pivotal to them. What happens in the church or happens in the religious settings becomes part of the fabric of their lives. So with that, then we move on to the compounds of the issues that have happened. So because of the lack of resources, the lack of being poverty, they were able to use a coping mechanism of each other to get by and to be able to have services that help them to de-stress, help them to feel re-energized, to move depression. They use religious coping mechanisms, whether that was their worship services, their enthralling of the spirit being moved upon them. All of those things were therapeutic for them, and they were able to literally relieve stress. So there has even been studies that show that the religious happenings during the church, services, the move of the spirit, and all that actually was therapeutic to its members and participants. That as they engaged in the service, that it actually did have a psychosomatic way of being able to literally reduce that stress and release that stress and give them the courage and strength and hope, as going to a professional would have done limitedly. So because they didn't have resources, they also then appointed the pastor or the reverend or the parishioners of the church, the elders of the church, whether that be the mother or the elders or certain wise older people, to be that counselor, to be that person that you would go to and lean on and tell your problems to, and get advice and get wisdom how to apply it to your life to move forward. And so because they had to do that, there was no other options. They weren't able to afford to be able to go and utilize services of professionals. They weren't able, some of them weren't even able to see a regular doctor. And if they were able to do that, they tried to use the doctor just to get extra words of wisdoms or their type of valued opinions so they can apply it to their lives to deal with the issues, the mental maladies that they were encumbering themselves from day to day. So this became a way of life. This became the only option that they had, was to lean on the elders and parishioners and appointees of the church. Well, to compensate and justify for that, there became a perpetuation of the stigma, which was that we don't need to go see a professional, that we don't need to lean on the actual advice of trained counselors or psychoanalysts or anything in the mental health arena. God will be our person. And if not God himself, then he has orchestrated that we're here with the parishioners, that we're here with the pastor, with the associate team, the mothers of the church. And so there became then this stigma against going to see professionals, in as much as I can even remember as a child, growing up in a very religious, highly religious setting, and it was really frowned upon if we found out someone had actually went to go see, for whatever reason, a non-church member asked for a counselor. So, i.e., if they went to go see a psychiatrist or a psychologist or see even a counselor. Now, back then, they didn't really have life coaches and all those type of coaches back, as I remember, but it was very much frowned upon. And the only time that we even made exceptions is if it was court ordered, or if, for whatever reason, they just had to do it. But it was not the thought or the premise or the practice that we would go see a professional counselor. And even when we did, I remember specifically a member of my family had to go, they were court ordered to go see a professional. And so it was very intense, and like it was very like, dramatic, like, oh, they've been ordered. And so they had to tell the pastor and basically get clearance of, like, I have to do it because that's what's been ordered. And they were given specific instructions, very, very detailed, as to what to do before they got there, while they're there. And it was as if they were saying that they were going to try and do something to the mind of the person, the participant that had to go, and give them drugs and give them all type of things that would be against what our doctrine or what our practice in religion was. So it was very taskful, but it made a very clear sound, a very clear image, that we don't practice going to see a professional, but that we would rather lean on persons who actually did not have the actual capabilities, who themselves had problems, issues, and things of that nature. And so we became entrenched and indoctrinized, and it became kind of almost a creed that that there is a separation of those who went to go see professional mental health providers versus those who went to go and utilize the church, and those who were non-professionals. So it began this perpetuation that still is prevalent today. And so, as well, one of the topics that became very strong, of course, was the fact that the practices and beliefs of the church and religion frowned upon the LGBT non-heterosexual practice. They didn't believe in same gender or any of the fluidity of gender and all those different things that we have now come to recognize. And so you found in the brown and black churches, you found that religion, which in these cultures and settings embraced those people who were marginalized in their day-to-day life, as all of the different maladies and societal ills and troubles were going along. They were already marginalized when they came together, but now you find a double marginal people, because those who were sexual or sexually disenfranchised because of their belief, because of their practice, because of their proclivities, it began a series of the place that was supposed to be a place that they belonged and be the anchor, became to be that place of chastisement, of and angst, and all of those different things. And so, although the Black church have historically have been, the foundation of the African American community, some individuals were marginalized within their own church community, both directly and indirectly. Black churches have been identified for fostering homophobia, which is the fear and contempt of homosexuals and behaviors based on such feelings. So what ended up happening is that you've had now this group of people, classically they were called DL people, but they exhibit these internalized homonegativities, which led to cognitive dissonance within inside themselves. So they're not able to function as they truly would to function because of fear of being ostracized, the fear of being penalized for their sexual proclivities. And so it also led to lower self-esteem and less perceived availability of social support. So there was no one there to help them understand or help them agree with the humanist part of them. So this paradox of African American homosexual individuals seeking a religious ideology and institution as a part of their psychological coping mechanism, despite facing homonegativity within the Black church community, points at a specific need for social and psychological support that these individuals seek for their well-being. So these people are coming to the church as growing up as a part of their culture and being turned away, being ostracized, and it is having a psychological effect on them. And true enough, when you experience that trauma that you go through, you bring that trauma into the corporate America. You bring it into the workforce. You bring it into the workplace. And so then you have to find coping mechanisms into your interpersonal and intrapersonal relationships. So they may have had limited support available and have histories of rejection and devaluation, and may be at greater risk for mental health problems as a result of this homonegativity. And so research has shown that higher levels of internalized homonegativity and distress will be predicted at lower levels of openness around one's sexuality and being connected with lesbian, gay, and bisexual community, and poor self or sense of self. So simply saying that those who are not able to be themselves, their true selves, to be confident that they're not going to be rejected or devalued or penalized for their sexuality and who they are. They're not able, they're constricted, and it starts to have a psychological effect. And the psychological effect then impacts their productivity. It products their relationship. It precludes their creativity. And so when you get into board meetings, the things that should have been able to um, be able to be found from them, that you be able to pour out from them, that leader that should be able to pull out from them, there is a limitation of it because they're worried about how they're appearing. They're worried about other things. They can't bring 100% of their person into the room. So research has found that areas and open areas that cultures within the workplace that support identity, full identity, bringing your full self, whatever that looks like, and not just the EEO on the board because legally you have to, but really because their culture allows it, yields a greater produce and productivity from those individuals. So, but it all starts and manifests within the religious confines that they learn this behavior. And so a person who submits to the type of um, religious confines and constructs that does not accept, brings that does not accept into the workplace. And even though they're limited in saying their beliefs, they're limited in expressing verbally, their behaviors still mirrors the belief that they have internally. So being able to work from the inside out is best method, because there's no way that you're going to have a strong belief against something and actually be receiving ethically of it in another setting. It does not work like that. Your mind, even in cognitive dissonance, will only go to the true belief of you. Even though your actions, you may try and act a certain way, the core belief and value of you will bleed through and blend in, and it will still be detected. So these persons, the LGBT community, as they go into the workforce, need to have social support. They need to have things that help them be who they are and know that they are valued. So in the research that I did, we in our survey and other surveys that actually research that has gone before have found out that many African American religious persons find seeking help from a professional to be threatening. They find that if they go to, it seems almost harmful, like seeking counseling from a non-professional religious or spiritual advisor is already harmful and was associated with higher odds of suicide attempts. So the fact that they went to the pastor and went to the mother or the elder of the church, they're not actually trying to tell you and to be able to properly diagnose or assess or give you the proper instruments to say whether this is, depression, or what scale of even depression it may be, or that you need to, what type of programming you need to get in, or what type of advisement, and put you on a path that will allow you to be holistically treated. They're only going to give you the limited amount of spiritual thought that they have, but they won't know, even if you're having schizophrenic episodes or all of those different things, they won't be able and to let you know that this is what's happening and this is what, they don't have that skill set. So what ends up happening a lot of times, they begin to demonize and they begin to call it something other, and they will even try to have exorcisms to try and cast out something that's actually a mental illness that may have been hereditary, passed down, or autism, and think that it's a demon, when in fact it is just something that needs to be treated in a totally different manner. But because of the fact that there's this stigma about going to see a mental health professional, the option is to only seek their advisement And because they don't recommend you to go, because in some instances they feel like they're failing if they're not able to properly do what they knew they were told by their mother and their, so it becomes a generational thought pattern embedded into the culture that this is the way that it happens. And so we find that even suicide rates have gone up and has surged because of these issues that have not been properly taken care of. So as we move forward, even the prevailing negative association between religion and psychological health for LGBT community. There is a prevailing negative connotation even in the LGBT community. Findings suggest that the LGBT individuals and this relationship might be misunderstood without the inclusion of positive faith experiences and intervening variables more proximal to psychological health. So, parishioners and leaders of the church taught that one's faith and religious resources is sufficient to address psychological needs for some who may be under considerable duress. And these methods purport the stigma and potentially lead clients away from the professional psychological services that is critical. So, although a lot of in the research we found that a lot of the LGBT community could not or felt alienated and could not properly talk to their parishioners, they also did not want to go see a professional about what they were going through, about their internalized homonegativity or about any other health conditions, mental health conditions that they were having. So it is the findings suggest that sexual minorities may strongly benefit from seeking out psychotherapy along with having the conversation with corresponding therapists regarding how their religious organizations' attitude and behaviors towards sexual minorities can impact them individually. So even I'm a part of the AACC, which is the American Association of Christian Counselors. So breaking down even the first rudiment stigma that there is either or choice, where either you get the church counseling and non-professional help, or you go to the professional help. We're making a commingle. We're bringing them together because they are together to service the holistic person. So the thought is, and the hope is that these individuals will go and seek and have a conversation, because religion is not replaceable. You're not going to get rid of it. It's not going to come away from you. You may walk away from it, but most of the research that has gone before shows that even when the person leaves the church, they don't particularly leave the faith. They just have a mistrust of the actual participation in a said church, in a stated church, but the relation that they have with God, their spirituality, has not waned. So these persons, we are encouraging them to be able to seek the help with their professional and have the faith-based conversation with them. Have it where it is included within their programming and their roadmap to success and their roadmap to mental wholeness and stability. So studies also show that men are less willing to seek help than women and give self-disclosure, which is another problem that has been happening in the church, that studies have shown that an alarming percentage of African Americans believe that disclosing personal information to a counselor leaves them more at a personal risk than benefit, and that this perception among the participants disclosing distressful information on a regular basis is something that one should not do. So they actually literally believe that they should not be able, or they should not have to disclose how they're feeling. It somehow weakens them, and especially in the male population, it weakens who they are. It weakens that I have to admit that there is a struggle, there is a stress, or I don't know how to deal, or I don't know how to go on. Somehow it takes a knock at their existence about who they are, about the assurity of who they are. It minimizes and diminishes their quality of existence by telling a professional. But having that cognitive dissonance was also a prevailing concern, that their decision not to disclose their sexuality within the church serves as a protective measure against ridicule, gossip, and shame for themselves, as their families' disclosure meant the possibility of loss of community and familial support system. So a lot of that community felt that if I disclose what's really going on, or how I feel, or what I'm going through, or if it's whether it's a struggle or a decision, or it's who I am, that I will be ostracized and shamed for it, and gossip will arise from that. But if you think about it, that goes right to the corporate America as well. That same scenario is played out in corporate America, where you're walking into the workplace and you have to behave a certain type of way if you feel that you won't be accepted, if you'll be ostracized, or if you'll be ridiculed, or even worse, if you won't get the promotion because you perceive that that this environment is not mentally health conscious or aware about how they treat the LGBTQ community. And so having that support system, having those ways, is ways we want to talk about how to mitigate the mental health um, um, ministry. So one thing that we found that was very interesting, and then I'll touch on a different point that kind of works with it, is that across the board, and it was even in my research, I broadened it a little bit beyond the African American, but even in the Hispanic cultures and other Southern Baptist cultures, that people felt better and felt more strengthened and felt more engaged, even if they weren't going to go see a professional mental health provider, that a support group would be better, that they didn't feel alone and feel alienated, and that in and of itself actually de-stressed and brought down some of the angst and the internal maladies that were happening inside that person, that they were able to now be more functional, feel more alive, because they had a place to belong. They felt supported, they felt agreed. And even in the in groups and out groups, they still, even though they were out in the religious setting, in the out group is whatever I'm saying. So ostracized, they, even being in, the real core of them was out. So they felt this tugging of two personalities or two existences, that they were lying as one part, and then but they held the truth, but then were able to at least go with their friends or to a support group and allow that part to be exemplified and accepted and loved. And so that gave them a better sense, but it did still have a stressor, because they were then bifurcated in their own personalities. Or when they would go to work, the same thing would happen. They would have to put on this type of person, or hide a part of who they are instead of bringing their full selves. And so that limited their scope and capability while at work. But even when they did add just a support group, it did actually help them in their stressors and in their mental health responses. It began to heal and modify itself for the better. So our first thing is offering the in-house support groups. Now, interestingly enough, I found, as we were doing all of our in the research, and we were at the end doing all of the numbers, the stats, and all of that, we found that actually those who were highly entrenched into religion and considered themselves to be very, very religious and spiritual did not want to associate themselves with a church based support group, that they were totally against going to a church housed or even connected with a church support group for the LGBT community, which made perfect sense. Because if they're fearful of being rejected and ostracized and all of those things, then they will not want to sign up, especially if it's not anonymous, to be in a support group whereby it's only going to shoot themselves in the foot. And by the way of letting people know that I'm having this problem and I'm in a support group, it's only going to not mitigate but exasperate the very thing that they're trying to hide. So even in when you're doing at workplaces and things like that, if there are support groups that are able to happen, then you still give that person an out. It's not connected to their church or to other things. They can have a safe space to come and get the support that they need to be able to be the holistic person, in their whole be the holistic person to operate fully and know that they're safe and know that they don't have to hide. Okay, so now these are your employees. This whole basis it's inescapable. So even though it may start in the systemic stigma may be placed and originates in a religious setting, it still migrates its way. It still finds its way into your boardrooms, into your leadership teams, into your team building exercises. It informs their behavior. So just because it's in the church does not preclude it from being in the workplace. It is in the workplace just as much as it is in the corporate America. So as unto being corporate America, you have the responsibility to be able to engage them, to let them know, to have those support groups, have those places that they're able to come in and be themselves, be that outside source that maybe they can't have it in other ways, but you being that provider, you may be that light, that beacon that allows them to be their best self. So in my research, there were different, when we asked what church affiliation or what type of church affiliation they had, there were, some Protestants, there were, all of the different sects, and then the sects of church, and then there was the affirming church as well among them. And the affirming church actually exuded the best answers as to the willingness to seek professional help, the attitude about self-disclosure. And that's because when you look at the whole composite of the test and research, that they were able to be themselves. They were able to have a source where like-minded people could come and not judge them and not ridicule them. They felt safe. They could be who they believed that they were as they evolved in their walk of life. So with that is actually the end. I have finished just a few minutes before, and I want to see if so she is here.
Yes. Thank you so much for that, Dr. Glover. So, you gave us so much information here in terms of like the research and the background behind all of this. If you had to kind of do like a wrap up summary in terms of just helping people understand the really the critical need right now to not, again, the espoused theory of separation of the church and state. But if you had to give us like a 30-second or 60-second synopsis of why corporate or any community organization, any kind of aspiring leader, and even going past just Christianity, going into just understanding people's intersections of their identity expression and their religious expression, and why allowing that authentic expression to thrive is beneficial. What would your 60-second synopsis be?
Yes. So without we're taking away all the different labels and titles as into whether it's religious or whether it's nonprofit, any of that. When you think about being a leader, period, you should be a leader has followers, right? So when and a leader is concerned about that team, about who's following them, being able to know that they're holistic only make them a better team builder with you because we're all in this together. So taking away that stigma, being that place because you don't know where their intersectionalities have come from, and it doesn't even matter. The truth is, it doesn't matter where it happened, whether it's home, church, playground. It doesn't matter. What you need to be able is to be that beacon, to be that light, to be that place to say wholeness is available. I accept you where you are, and point you in a direction that allows you to be able to be comfortable enough to seek the help you need to take that stigma off.
Okay, I love that. I have a follow-up now. So
Okay,
let's say I am this leader and I want to be this holistic, inclusive leader, and I have a diverse team, right?
correct.
How do I, as a leader, start having these conversations about such sensitive topics to my
Yes.
team members?
Yes, number one, and I have a YouTube channel that I love that I just launched. It's about 5 months. So I talk about, I'm a diversity leader. So this is what I talk about in the workplace. So the first thing I would say is that you have to understand your diversity, who you are as diverse, because it doesn't matter. I know we say diversity and we usually tailor it to a groupings of people. So the black people or the LGBTQ or the Hispanic, we have that, but it doesn't matter where you are actually diverse in yourself because I myself, okay, being an LGBT person, that makes me diverse. Being black male, that makes me diverse. But even beyond that, take that away. Me growing up in the Midwest, that makes me diverse. Me having a doctorate, that makes me diverse. Like when you bring all these layers, understanding yourself as diverse helps you to have empathy towards others' diversity. It makes you sensitive. So when you understand diversity as personal and not as a legal thing or ethical standpoint, no, but as a human, it actually sets you up to have a conversation because people more than not understand your energy versus you may even mess up the words and not have it all together, but they really can, unless they're just trying to, but they can actually feel that you're actually in this with them, that you're trying to understand. So then there's different techniques to be able to have that conversation, but to celebrate is the number one thing I think that we don't do on a thing. We can talk about building policies, we can talk about having, sensitive trainings, but when you celebrate it, it tells the culture that this is something we don't just tolerate. We love this. This is who we are. This is what we do. So being able to not just say, okay, so we're going to change all the language to make sure that we're sensitive, which is needed, please do. But when you're able to say 5 minutes, we're going to create a story about this diversity thing that happened, it actually it penetrates much further, lasts much longer. And of course, who doesn't love a good story? That's what the whole earth is built from, stories. But when you have that, you inculcate into your culture a place of safety, saying, my differentness actually is my accessory, not the thing I need to hide. Because I need
Mm,
to and be like everybody else. But the number one thing is, as that leader, you have to go inside yourself and see all of your diversities. And because once you have a true conversation with yourself, the conversation flows easily with one another.
absolutely. I love that. My differentness is my accessory, not the thing I need to hide.
Right.
I absolutely love that. And I completely agree. I mean, you and I have had these conversations offline, and I completely agree that that journey really has to start within you, because if you don't understand yourself, how are you even going to try and understand somebody else?
Yes, yes,
Yeah. Yeah.
yes.
So thank you so much for, I mean, there was, I wasn't kidding when I said this was like a whole semester's worth of education in just 50 minutes. And there's so much to unpack in there.
It is. It is. But if we can, and I always feel like if we can start the conversation, we can have the conversation. I think that a lot of times, and I mean, and of course, during the 2020, what other time is there better than to have this conversation and these conversations. So I just want to firstly congratulate you again for your work, encourage you. And, of course, I'm going to put this up everywhere because I think that this is healthy and you can't cure it enough. You can't, and then our stories, even though they may be likened to each other, they have their own differentness in and of itself. So my people will listen to me like your people and your tribalists to you. But when we swap, they'll get another perspective. So the danger is only having one testimony to a group as well. When you hear the differentness, you'll understand differentness. And we are more alike than we actually are different as well.
Exactly, exactly. And that's been sort of the overarching theme for today, is that the similarities, are greater than the differences, and really being radically authentic and being vulnerable and owning that vulnerability to understand that we are more similar than we are different. And I love the point you brought up about celebrating. Don't just tolerate, celebrate it.
Right.
I think that's such a powerful ending message for this really powerful session. So thank you again, Dr. Glover.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, absolutely. And for all of our listeners, whether you tune in live or watching this later, please let us know what you thought about this session. The link is on the bottom of the ticker. It is www.bit.ly/C3 / C3EB survey. And if you want to get in touch with Dr. Glover and have a greater conversation, Dr. Glover's information is on his speaker page on the C3EB website. So please go check that out. And once again, thank you to our sponsors, Catchwords, powered by EcoFiles, Achieve Podcast, Core Magazine, Oronexus, 30 Friends, Wistia, and the Nielsen Company for walking this walk with us so that we can make this accessible to everybody, or as many people as we can anyway. We're working on a more accessibility in the future. But on that note, we are going to take a quick bio break, and we'll be back at 3:30 in about 9 minutes with our next session. So make sure you catch us there. And again, thank you so much, Dr. Glover.